Welcome back, everyone, to the very first On Assignment of 2015. I, again, am Philip Alexiou, here with my co-host, Imran Siddiqui. Well, back in 2011, the U.S. and Russia agreed to shrink their stockpile of land-based nuclear missiles, continuing a process that began under U.S. President Ronald Reagan.
As the number of nuclear missiles has shrunk, so has the need for launch sites. VOA's Kane Farabaugh went inside a shuttered site in North Dakota. Here's a look back at what he told On Assignment's Philip Alexiou about the experience.
The place where I went is very similar to what an active launch control facility for these nuclear missiles looks like today. A lot of the equipment that you see when you're down there 70 to 100 feet below the surface is the same equipment that they're using in the active Minuteman missile silos that are spread across the country today. However, it's interesting because when these were decommissioned in 1998, everything that was inside the building was left as it is. So when you walk into the structure for the first time and you walk on the upstairs part of the launch facility, you'll see magazines, Time magazines, Newsweek magazines, ping pong tables. These things are all as they were on the day that the people who lived here or manned these things left in 1998.
Oscar Zero is now called the Ronald Reagan Minuteman Missile State Historic Site. Supervisor Gwen Hinman offers tours below the surface, taking visitors into the heart of the front line of the Cold War, where a small crew of missileers waited behind thick steel blast doors and reinforced concrete for the fateful decision to launch their nuclear missiles.
We like to say they were training for a job that they hope to never have to do.
But it is a job someone still has. About 150 active missile sites remain in North Dakota.
Now, I thought it was interesting that they actually had the key in the ignition, so to speak, ready to go. So how quick were they? How quick could they launch a nuclear missile back then?
Well, they could do it very quickly, but it has to be an order from the president. Now, it's a little bit of a misnomer because those keys are actually not necessarily in the ignition. What would happen is these missileers had codes and separate access to separate parts of a lockbox that's also in the facility. There really is a rigorous security fail-safe in place to prevent any one person from being able to launch one of those nuclear missiles. But, you know, there was a time when there was always this active state of readiness that you could get called to pull that key out of its lockbox at any time.
So how much room is down there? How much square footage? Is it a living area? I guess the military would be down in there for long periods of time.
You know, they would work 24-hour shifts down there, maybe even a little bit longer. It's interesting. It's the size of perhaps a large apartment or a small house. One side of this structure is where the generator or the diesel engines or the things that power the place are located. That's on one side, and on the other side is this small launch control facility. When they were actually there in the Cold War, you know, you're behind very thick steel blast doors, very thick concrete, and it's all really buffered in the event that should there have been a nuclear war, this facility would have been protected against the fallout or the impact of a nuclear missile.
Now, North Dakota has a whole lot of missile silos there. I guess you mentioned something 150 or so, something like that now. So what's so special about North Dakota that they wanted to use so much of that space for nuclear missile sites?
Well, North Dakota is home to two Air Force bases, one of them being Minot, the other Grand Forks. And during the height of the Cold War, both of these facilities were in charge of the nuclear missiles that were spread out throughout North Dakota. I think at the height of the Cold War, there were something like 1,100 nuclear missiles spread out in North Dakota alone.
Wow.
And talking to the Secretary of State of North Dakota, Alvin Yeager, he said the running joke in North Dakota during that time was that North Dakota was the third largest nuclear power in the world because they had so many nuclear missiles stationed across the state. So I think right now there are about 450 intercontinental ballistic missiles that are spread out across the United States.
Right.
However, applying treaty obligations, the United States is now going to reduce that number by 50, and that is the lowest number since the height of the Cold War.
Well, what do people think about their nuclear home, if you will, in North Dakota? They have so many of them there. They've obviously been living with them for so long, but what do people say about that?
They don't say anything. As a matter of fact, they just don't think about it. People in North Dakota have lived next to these missiles for decades. It's just a part of life. And in many cases, it's an unknown part of life. And they move on as if there's nothing there, or it's just not a concern to them.
And that was VOA's Kane Farabaugh with another look at the story we first brought you back in August.